There we go.
Perfect.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tim Selden, and this is Independent School Leaders Forum. I am here today with my colleague, Dr. Lindsay Pollock, who is the provost of Sarasota University. We have many friends here. Bill Summers is with us. I really appreciate you being here. Bill is going to scoot out partially through the session, which is not because he's not happy with the speaker. Our guest today is John Soffer. And Lindsay, would you like to introduce John?
I'm having a little bit, let's see, I'm having a bit of a lag in my computer. Just one moment. I'm trying to get John's bio up. I'm in Germany. I know our friends who are with us are from all over the world. But Bill, could you do the honor for
Sure.
John? Because I'm having some technology
And,
issues,
and,
but I know John is going to just enlighten us today and give us a real treat. Thank you,
well,
Bill.
as Lindsay and I have talked over the years and started working, with Montessori, I said, anybody, we obviously want students to grow in efficacy, etc. And how can staff help promote that? And
Mhm.
knowing John for, God, what, 40 years, John? Um, I often refer to him as my go-to guru because if John studied it, it is solid research. And one of the books about 10 years ago, he wrote High Expectation Teaching, 50 ways to help kids know they're smart. We need
I love
less
that.
command and control and kick tail and know how to elevate their thinking skills. And I can't think of anybody who knows more specific strategies that'll help. And so, John, take it away. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you, Bill, for those kind words, and thank you all for you three folks from the Montessori Foundation for inviting me. I'm pleased to be with you. I'm going to be going back and forth between a few PowerPoint slides and some videos. So there'll be, it's a little awkward to do this on Zoom. So there'll be a 10-second pause every time I try and make one of these transitions because I have to stop sharing, open the new one, start sharing, and up it'll go. But I think the videos are important because as an audience, Montessori people tend to be more tuned in to um, high expectations and the belief that all children have the capacity to achieve at proficiency than others. You've eliminated some obstacles to that in the very structure of how you do schools with regards to not doing standard grading practices. So I'm going to start off by sharing a little PowerPoint and then move to a video around this topic. Um, I think because many of you are already tuned into this, the main takeaways are going to be illustrating very specific things people do to convince kids they're able. And the students that we're talking about are all students, but it makes a particular difference for low confidence, low achieving students who have certain characteristics that you may observe. I would imagine everybody on this call has a student or two, or maybe more, who doesn't work very hard. In fact, they hardly do any work at all. They say things like, oh, this is dumb. Or even worse than that, I'm dumb. This is too hard. You can't expect me to do this. Or, nobody in my family was ever good at math. Thanks, Mr. Safir, for your encouragement. But really, and they won't quite say this, but what they're thinking is it's hopeless. Those are the students that we're talking about. And what we want to do is give them belief, confidence, tools, and desire. And that is something that can be done. Belief that their ability can be grown, that they've got it up here. Second, confidence they can grow theirs, not just that it's possible. Third, the tools to grow it, the study skills, the habits of mind, the habits of effort, particularly how to teach kids what effective effort is and to get them to exert it and monitor themselves and how they're exerting it. and finally the desire to want to achieve well. So in what is a very brief introduction to a very large field of study, there are some modest goals that I have for our hour together. One is that I pique your curiosity and you get to want to dig into this knowledge base. And it's particularly effective when peer observation takes place for teachers to be in each other's rooms. That's one of the points you made this morning with Steve, Bill. And that there are there's a reason to say there's more, no matter how good we already think we are and how well we're doing, there's always more to learn about this topic. The second thing is to convince you there's a real knowledge base to dig into. And in service of that, I'm going to show you some teachers in action who are high gain teachers. That is, people who have students who gain more in an academic year than the calendar year that the school has in its calendar. That is to say, 1.5 grade levels in one actual year. These are all people who have that kind of track record. And the third is I want to build your confidence that student ability in any academic area can actually be increased. That, to use a phrase of a friend of mine, Jeff Howard, smart is not something you are. Smart is something you get. And there is some really startling research behind that to back it up. For those of you who are interested in the gap in our country between children of color and children in the white mainstream, this is the key area to work in. All of good teaching contributes to eliminate equity, but we have 25 years of case study in our archives of people who have gotten startling results for kids by putting to work the skills that I'm going to be just introducing you to today. You know, we have a 6-day course in high expectation teaching, which has 2 weeks in between each day in order to have people try things out. And we ask people in this course to pick a kid who's low confidence, low performing, who may have given up on himself or herself, and found a role in the class by being either invisible, I'm the invisible ghost in the back of the room with the hoodie pulled up, or I am the clown who gets everybody's attention by being funny and by being somewhat disruptive. My point here is that there are no unmotivated kids. They're just not necessarily motivated by what's being offered to them in the classroom today. Everybody wants to be seen and valuable. Everybody wants to succeed. And so if a kid is not experiencing academic success in school, they will invent another way to be visible and to be seen. And these are the people in the case studies we've been accumulating over the years. Now, there are certain teachers who convince kids to change their mind about their capacity, and the kids know who they are. I'm going to show you a video of our colleague Andy Platt talking to a bunch of seniors in high school, and he's asking them if they had a teacher who made a difference because they became convinced that they were able, whereas before they hadn't really put in the effort to do that. And I want you to listen particularly to what Justin has to say about that. And what I'm hoping is that the video is on screen. Tim, do you see this video?
Not yet.
You don't? Okay, let me do another little manipulation here. And how about now?
Yep.
All right. Let me fill the screen with it. And listen to Justin talking about his teacher who made a difference.
Justin, what about you?
Probably the teacher I've had the best experience with is my English teacher from junior year. Sophomore year. Mm-hmm. Where she pretty much just sat me down and this is the work I was gonna do, and it was all up to me how hard I did. But I understood it started off I wasn't doing that well because I was still getting used to high school and stuff, and I wasn't really paying attention much in class, and I was really not doing that well. And then I started realizing how easier it got, like the more work, like the more effort I put into it, the better grades I got and stuff. So it was like coming up like with the effort myself is what she taught me to put in my work and like how to research. Like the better I got, the more she would teach me. This is basically something? The thing. So like she basically got me to want to learn.
Right.
So like, and now like by the end of the year I had like A's and B's, like sophomore year, and then like I've been doing like well ever since.
That's great. Now has that kind of attitude about effort and hard work, has that carried over to other courses?
Yeah,
that began with her, but
yeah, it was it's carried into math, it's carried into like social studies, everything like that.
What's up?
Yeah.
Oh, the caterpillar. That's what happens when you're outside in nature. Shall I pass you this caterpillar?
Yeah.
There you go. You take it. You caterpillar sit. So it's carried over to other areas.
It's helped me like in all areas, like even out of school, like playing sports and doing other stuff like that, just like and interacting with other people.
It's great.
It's just like brought out like me, like to show me that like if I make the effort, I'm gonna have like positive results.
How did she get you to do that? What was it?
There wasn't a lot. Like she didn't have to say anything or anything like that. Like she showed that she believed in me, and like and it wasn't like that she was like that we had like an extreme like personal relationship in class. It was just like it was like we had a lot of respect. And
did she tell you that she believed in you and she didn't accept work that wasn't what she really thought you could do?
Yeah, I mean, like it started out like she was more accepting to certain things, and then when she knew I was learning, she like she wouldn't accept like the lazy like stuff that I would do.
You tried Did you try to slip back to that?
I slipped back a couple of times, but it didn't work.
Great.
But
that's a great memory.
Yeah.
Now, this is typical of kids when they're asked about a teacher who made a difference for them. He says, well, it wasn't anything particular she said or did, she made me redo work, etc. But it wasn't anything particular. Yes, it was. It was a whole lot of very particular things that she did. He just doesn't remember them. He's not an anthropologist studying his teacher's behavior in order to identify how she's getting him to convert from somebody who doesn't believe in himself to somebody who does. And so I'm going to switch over now and show you another teacher whose icon seems to have disappeared from my screen here. Let me see if I can get her back up. First of all, I need to close that one down. Here we go. Now she is up. This is a fourth grade teacher, and what you're going to see is a 1-minute incident. And what I'd like you to look for is there any clue in how she handles this incident that will give you an insight onto why she's one of these high-gain teachers. Her name is Meredith, and she's asked the following question: who remembers the definition of natural resources? And what she gets is a half-correct answer from Ricardo. Now, let's see if I can show this video to you. Now, is there a video appearing on screen?
Yep.
Good. Here we go.
Okay. Who wants to read question 1 for us? Go ahead, Raphael.
What is a natural resource?
And who can answer that for us? Ricardo.
The things you find over, such as trees, stakes, tree bark.
Oh, I like that you're using examples. Things you'd find on Earth. There's a piece of that. You're going to add one more piece of that to help us understand it. Because right now what you defined, Ricardo, is nature. You want to call on someone to help you get it to natural resources?
That people can use.
So put it all together in one great definition.
Natural resource is something found in nature that people can use.
Ricardo, do you see the difference? So can you say it?
Natural resources are things that people can use.
But now you're missing the cool part that you had before.
Things you find on Earth and things that people can use.
Things you find on Earth that people can use.
You don't need to look at that guy. The reason that I'm on these videos is every video I show you is available for free on our website, and they were created to be independent activities that staff developers around the country could get an introduction to, show the video, and then there's an exercise afterwards. This was a time when, if we had enough time, I was going to ask Tim to put us in breakout groups, but I think I'm going to suspend that, Tim, just because of the time it takes to get into them and the time it takes to get back, and ask you all if we can have people raise their hands and be unmuted or type into the chat. What's something you saw? Anything that you think could have something to do with why she's a high gain teacher and why she convinces kids that they are able. So I will open up the chat room, and also, can you open people's voices, or shall we just rely on the chat room, Tim?
Everyone is capable of just unmuting, turning on their camera and talking, or
Excellent. Let's
turning
do it.
on their microphone and not turning on their camera if they're eating lunch.
All righty.
Come on, everyone. We'd love to hear from you. How about you, Margaret? Hi, Ginger. Asking questions equals time for critical thinking.
Yeah, she uses wait time and gives that time. What else struck you? That was a good starter, Ginger. Thank you.
Camera to work. Where goes? There it goes.
Anyone else have any thoughts about the teacher you just saw in that video?
This is where I get to use my wait time, Tim.
Yep.
I noticed the tone of voice, the cadence of the voice. It was warm and inviting, yet setting a firm boundary. And I think it communicated, even the body language, that the teacher really cared about the student.
Thank you, Lindsay. Let me just run through the scenario. What's the definition of natural resources? He says, well, it's like trees and bark. And she says, I like that you're using examples. So there we are with a little recognition. And then she says, but there's one part you left out. This is a cue that's coming in. Wait time. He doesn't come up with it. Anybody remember what she did right after that? I'm not trying to play guess what's on the teacher's mind here, because that was a very quick video. She gets another student involved, but she has him make the choice. Now, Karen points out she came back to Ricardo after that other student did the missing part. That's a key element here. That is to say, instead of calling on somebody else, she has him pick who's going to produce a little more information. And then she comes back to him to have him put it all together. So he gets to emerge in triumph rather than the kid who has to be bailed out. Now, there's a particular name for that behavior, and it is called persevere and return. What Bill mentioned earlier was that that book that I showed you at the beginning is about 50 ways to get kids to believe in themselves. Are we seeing that 50 ways on screen right now?
We are.
Good. Now, when my colleagues and I, about 10 years ago, really started researching this, we came up with 49 things people do who get kids to believe in themselves. Not a good number for a list, right? So I thought of that song from Simon and Garfunkel, 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover. Anybody want to sing that at the break with me as a duet? Slip out the back, Jack. Well, anyway, there are 50 things that you'll see people do when they are committed to get the kids to discard their stereotype of themselves as somebody who's not good in math. Now, Ricardo is one of those students who thinks he's not a very good student overall. And what the behavior she has done is number 4 here. Persevere and return. When a kid answers a question half right or answers it incorrectly, whatever you do to get the correct information produced, go back to the kid who missed it or who did it half right and have them put it together. So now, there's one other thing that people occasionally noticed. When it's over, she doesn't say, "Fabulous, Ricardo. High five. Man, way to go. Everybody, give him silent cheer." It's just business as usual. Of course he got it, and she's moving on to the next thing. When there is lavish praise for something that is a normal academic move on the kid's part, in this case, to put them together, lavish praise can make the kids think you're amazed he got it, right? The angel Gabriel came down and whispered it in his ear. You know, there is nothing lavishly spectacular about him getting it. Of course he got it. That's the point here. Now, the first 9 things that we have found that high expectation teachers do are verbal behaviors, things you hear people say in situations like the one we just looked at. Then there's another category of things that people do that are actually structures that are put in place. Now, in this case, it is the structure and the nature of it that embeds the message rather than how I handled my verbal behavior in response to the student. And I'm going to show you one of those now. Let's see. First of all, I'm going to have to stop share. And then I'm going to have to hit share again. And then I'm going to have to hit this video and see if it comes up. Now you should see a video where...
Hi, my name is Leah Alcala.
Leah Alcala introduced herself. Are you all seeing that?
Mm-hmm.
I am so pleased. When the technology works, it always makes me feel good. Leah, tell us what your do now is. You have a particular routine for that.
I teach 8th grade math, and this is my warm-up routine that I do with my students almost every day. I call it my favorite no. Okay. Good morning, you guys. Your warm-up is on the board. I'm going to hand out your index cards. I put a warm-up problem on the board, hand out index cards to all the kids, have them write their answer. I collect it, and then I sort it, and I say yes, no, yes, no. And I look for my favorite wrong answer, my favorite no, and we analyze that. 4 minutes to work on it. Everyone makes mistakes. We're going to see your mistakes, you're going to see my mistakes. But a mistake is your opportunity to share with me how much you understand. And if I don't know that you don't know something, I need to teach you before the test. The test is too late. And this is a great spot for me to teach you. Make sure your name is on your card. Put your pencil in your pencil slot and pass your cards to the center. I started my warm-up routine to replace clickers that a lot of classes are buying. So that was a clicker for each student. You ask a question, they lock in an answer. And then you look at your computer screen and you know what percentage of your students understand the problem. Well, we didn't have the money for that, so instead... Okay, here we go! I thought, well, what if I gave everyone index cards, collected them real quick with their answers already written on it, and then I can just sort them as quick as possible and find out what percentage of my kids know the answer. No. Yes. Costs 40 cents instead of $15,000. Yes, so we have quite a few yeses and some very interesting no's. 1, 2, 3, 4. I then took that a step further, something I couldn't do with clickers. 7. Look at the ones who are getting it wrong. How far are they from getting it right? And showing that work to the other kids. Okay, my favorite no. Someone wrote this. I say it's my favorite no because I want the kids to first of all recognize what they're about to see is wrong. And I want them to recognize that there's something good in the problem. Like there's a mistake, but it's my favorite no because it showed some good math. So that's the wrong answer. But they did some things that I love. What in that problem am I happy to see? We always talk about what's right first, so that if it's any student's work, they are like, oh, I did do that right. There's a mistake, but the mistake didn't ruin the whole thing. What do I like about this problem, Gavin?
Well, they distributed both with the 4x and the -2.
Very nice. And what? Today's lesson was on factoring, so I needed to make sure they understood how to distribute. They distributed, and what lets you know that they distributed? David?
How there are no more parentheses.
There are no more parentheses, and they didn't just drop the parentheses. So they're asked to distribute a term with a variable. They're asked to distribute twice. They're asked to distribute a term with a negative sign, which is often a very common mistake that kids make. And my students do not. Like, I have 3 years of CST data now to show that one mistake my students do not make is distributing a negative, which is amazing because they used to all the time. Distributing -2 to -6 is +12. And that was one mistake I was absolutely looking for and I did not see, which made me very happy. Not until the very end, as we've gone over different sections of the problem that are right, that I will then ask, okay, now what is incorrect? What does this person not understand? Where's the mistake? If I get a third of my class raising their hand, ready to tell me the mistake, it's pretty high engagement at that point. Mia?
Like 4x times 2x equals 8x squared.
Very nice. This 4x times 2x multiplies to 8x squared. Can someone convince me of that? How do we know that 4x times 2x is 8x squared? My low-level students are very engaged. They feel like they're not getting penalized for being wrong. They're not being made fun of. I'm not looking at them. No, there's no peer pressure at this point. But they're like, wow, that's my mistake. And now I understand. It's very comforting. I mean, I feel very with my kids at all times. I'm not surprised by what they don't know. They're not surprised by what they don't know. It's how it should be. It creates more of a dialogue with me and them.
That's publicly available if you have a subscription to Teaching Channel. Now, I'd like to go over that with you in order to milk out the richness of what's going on there. I introduced it by saying the structure rather than the words she says, although there are some key things she says, like convince me that. The structure embeds positive expectations. Now, let's look at the details. First, she passes out cards as they're walking in the door, index cards. Every kid takes the card to the seat. The do now problem is written on the board. Kids do the problem on the card. They hand in the card to her. She sorts the cards into yeses and nos, kids that got the problem correct and kids that made a mistake. Then she picks one. And rather than putting it under a document camera, she transcribes it onto the pad that's projecting onto the board. Why, by the way, would she transcribe it rather than putting the kids underneath? If you're saying to yourself, anonymity, you're right. This is to preserve the kid's identity. And it's early in the year. And by the way, towards the end of the year, she won't have to do that because having made a good mistake is a sign of honor in the class. But at this point, she's protecting his identity. She puts it up on the board. She writes, and then she says, who can tell me what the mistake is? A third of the class raises their hand. And then she identifies the fact that they multiplied two negatives and got a positive. That makes me happy. And then what the error is. All right. Now, who wants to say something about what about this procedure embeds the positive approach that Uma just put up?
I love the comments. Yeah.
Yeah. Feels like a team sport in which the mistakes are in service of the team. Well said. Mistake is an opportunity for learning, said Magda. There's something good about a mistake, and that it reveals our understanding or seeking a better understanding is a sign of growth. Right on. Any other thoughts or reactions?
The mental health in these classrooms is just so high in comparison with many. The whole idea of just working together, learning together, honest respect. I say funky has said positive reinforcement.
Mm-hmm.
Check.
I love the fact that the teacher is taking responsibility, like for the results. She's owning it and she wants to see, like, how can I change my method of instruction? How can I differentiate? Like, how am I responsive to the needs of my students as opposed to, blaming the kids for the responses?
Check. Even though this is an 8th grade class, the structure can be applied at any grade level in terms of what do you do for a do now. And you can, even with a self-contained class where you have the kids all day long, you can say, okay, let's get ready now for math. Or you can do it with, let's get ready for language arts. Okay, I want you to punctuate the following sentence, and the sentence is what the do now is on the board. Or it can be, it could even be in your own words, write down what you think the main idea of this paragraph is, and the paragraph is on the board. So it's quite flexible as a structure. So anyway, now we've looked at 2 categories of the 50 ways to get kids to believe in themselves. Another one that I'd like to show you is the notion of reteaching in small groups when some of the kids didn't get it the first time around. This one happens to be a high school class, and I like to share it because it is more rare for high school teachers to think that they can do small group reteaching in the middle of a 48-minute class. But this teacher does, and he does it once a week. His name is Zach Herman, and he happens to be at Evanston Township High School. Now, let me see if I can get Zach's video up for, oops, I opened the wrong one. Let me close that one back down. The one that I opened by mistake is one where I show tenacity, which Justin was talking about at the beginning of his time with us. Now, Zach, here we go. Now let me hit share and see if this one comes up. Now you ought to see a kid in a red hoodie bending over his desk. Is that visible?
Yeah. Thank you, Magda. We're getting lots of great comments, by the way, John.
What did Magda have to say?
Magda, you want to unmute and just speak? Please do.
Yes, please.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
I know Tim. Hi, Tim. I have met you many times in your conferences in Sarasota, Florida. I'm happy to be with you. I am part of your institution and love what you do. What I want to say, this is a great presentation because I love the development of teachers. The problem is not with the kids. The problem is with the grown-ups who don't understand the nature of the kids. I love the idea that we need to enhance this concept that learning is a natural part of the process of learning, because kids feel they lose their self-confidence. They feel guilty when they make mistakes. So we need to eliminate that. And this is what the teachers has been doing in this video, which I love. And actually, it's part of human nature, part of us, perfectionism. We are born with this, but we should not be chained by this. It's a sign, it's a force within us to seek always what's better. So we need to enhance this concept in the kids. It's normal to make a mistake. A mistake is an opportunity to build self-confidence, to build the character of the child. Thank you very much.
Well said, Magda. So, in the clip we're about to look at, the teacher takes on that issue explicitly. And I think I'll just play it and let you see how that bounces off against your own belief system.
Mr. Herman has given his students 3 problems as they come through the door into class: type A, type B, and type C. There's a little rectangle above each problem on their sheets. Mr. Herman goes around and he writes in each rectangle either E for extension, meaning you're ready for an extension for that type of problem, or S for support, meaning you'll be called up for a small group support session, which is reteaching, later at his table. If Mr. Herman thinks the student is doing all right, but maybe shaky, he writes E/S in the box, and the student can choose to come up or not when support's offered for that type of problem. 3 groups in all will receive reteaching in this class. And yes, some students will be in multiple groups. Now, listen to what he says as the first group is called. What messages and expectations are conveyed to students by his choice of words?
All right. This is my favorite part, where we actually get what we need. So I'm going to hand out the extensions. If you have an E, then you're ready for the extension for that type of problem. So just for type A, this is the extension for type B, and so on. If you have an S, that means that you're ready for the support session. You come up here, we talk about it, we make sure we get it. That's the whole point, that we all leave here making sure we understand how to do every single one of these problems. In the past, I've been confident that we leave here and we really get how to do these things. So whatever you happen to need at this time, for some of you I marked E/S. You might have been close but didn't finish. Maybe you could handle the extension, or maybe you could handle the session, just depending on what you feel comfortable with. The answers, the keys to the extensions are back here. So if you're working in the back, you can check your answer and work with other people, obviously, to work through it. So I'm going to hand this out to everybody. I'm going to start the session for type A problems in the front. So if you want to come to the session, or if you're assigned to the session for type A problems, you can start making your way up to the front. Otherwise, you can maybe move if you want to work with some people and get what you need to get.
So this is one of the key problems.
Okay, I'm going to stop the video there and stop the share. Okay. Now, I'm interested in what you picked up either in his language or in the structure of the activity that you think has to do why he's a high gain teacher. He tends to get the kids who have either failed 8th grade math or who have scored very low in it, and in the year he has with them, they gain more than 1 year's worth of mathematics proficiency than the grade level would have expected. So anybody may start. What's one thing you noticed that you thought was significant about how he handled the reteaching, which will take place, by the way, about once a week in his class?
See, Cicely said he didn't use any judgment.
Check. Never any judgmental words.
Yeah. Lindsay says he used the word we.
Correct.
Funky said, whoops, I missed what Funky said. Sorry.
He allowed collaboration, and he allows them to choose whether or not they want to work with another student or not. Absolutely. Yeah. And you can assume that he's done some training before with them on how one speaks to a colleague in a collaborative group, which indeed he has.
Yeah.
Check about choices, Lindsay. In the course we do on this, we use scripts often and have people look at the script so you can pick out some of the language that leaps out at you. One of the times he used we, he said, this is where we get what we need. Now, the language of what we need is very much the opposite of what. Here's where those of you who didn't get it get to fill in the mistakes that you made before. And the assumption is everybody has something they need. Now, why do you think he says this is my favorite part? There's an embedded message there. Language has power, and there are embedded meanings in words, which George Lakoff once wrote a whole book about. He studied political language, and he said when George W. was running for president, he said, if you elect me, I'm going to give you tax relief. Relief. Relief embeds a tacit meaning that you're being oppressed and I'm going to take away the oppression. Similarly, when he says, this is my favorite part, there is an embedded meaning which we don't analyze when we hear it. We just, because we're fluent in the language, respond to it. Hi, is there support? He's there, absolutely. Yes, again, from Magda and Suyata.
And again, we're getting great participation. I really want to remind you, this is not like our webinar. You can turn on your camera, you can unmute, you can talk to us in real time if you want. Hi. Monkey says ensuring them to see it as a positive part and to not be afraid. Some of you I know use Socratic teaching, the whole idea of the seminar. And this is very tied into that same kind of thing. What John is describing are very specific strategies that you can use in a Montessori school or a non-Montessori classroom to really try to create that kind of positive mental health.
Check.
Hello, may I say something? What I like about highlighting this video is that teachers care a lot. The majority of teachers care a lot about the instruction, the teaching method, the concept of the lesson, etc. But they ignore the language they use. They don't pay attention to the language they use. The language is very important because it creates the environment of the classroom. It is part of the environment of the classroom. It sends messages for the kids that there is an atmosphere of respect and acceptance.
Yes.
I do remember when my kid was in the fifth math, will never be good in math. Until this day, we are struggling with my son, who is in his 30s, to convince him that he's good in math.
Yeah.
So to that extent, one word a teacher can say without paying attention, intentionally or unintentionally, can change the history of a human being, the future of a human being. That's why language is very, very important. I appreciate raising this point.
Yes, underline 3 times everything that you just said. Language is important, and so certain parts of our vocabulary become extirpated and thrown away. Like, well, good luck. It's not luck, it's how much effort you put into studying and getting ready for it. Or, it's easy. That's a no-win thing to say, isn't it? Because if it turns out to be easy, then there's no triumph in what you did. And if it turns out to be hard anyway, then you must conclude that you haven't got it. You're dumb. So another word that I'm sure you've heard about that becomes part of it is if a kid says, I don't get it. And my response is, you don't get it yet, but you will. Come on, let's sit down and find out where the gap is. So the language of high expectations is one that is always sending confidence and belief to the kids and always taking a problem-solving stance to obstacles that they run into. It also means one of the things, if you're interested, I'll send you that list of all the 50 ways, Tim and Lindsay, and you can send it out to all the
Yeah,
people who
absolutely.
participated.
And I just want to remind you, because we just got a note that one of our this has to leave. Many of you are from all over the world, and some of you are heads of schools. You're you're juggling different things. I know what it's like. We appreciate you. You can show up late. You can leave early. It's not disrespectful. I do want to remind you these are recorded, and that we send the recordings to everyone. And if you miss the recording or you just don't see it, just go to the YouTube. If you look up the Montessori Foundation, you should be able to see all of the webinars we've been doing for years.
I'd like to put up the PowerPoint and show you all a little bit more about the notions behind convincing kids that they are able. Do you see a bell curve on screen right now, Tim?
We do.
Very good. Now, this bell curve is the enemy of high expectation teaching. It says intelligence is a thing, and it's innate and fixed, and unfortunately, it is unevenly distributed, so some people have more of it than others. It does determine how you're going to do in life. It certainly determines how you're going to do in school. But fortunately, it is measurable. We can give an IQ test that will tell us how much of it you have. Don't worry if it turns out to be a low number. We're still going to make the educational experience pleasant for you. Now, you may have noticed a little tinge of sarcasm creep into my voice as I got toward the bottom of this list. I believed this for fully half my life. I'm 83 years old right now, and well into my 40s, I thought this is the way it is. It was, it is part of our culture, particularly in the United States, more than other countries in the world, to believe that this is true. As opposed to this, I would propose this as an alternate schema for what ability and intelligence is. It's a self-reinforcing cycle. If I can build your confidence and get you to exert effective effort because I've taught you what that is, and it boosts your confidence and you get an increment of achievement out of that, it becomes a self-reinforcing cycle. This is not to say that there isn't anything inborn into the wiring of our brains that distinguishes people from one another, but all of us have enough inborn ability in order to make effective effort the much larger variable in how much one achieves. So effective effort involves actually learning how to do things like how to focus, how to use resources. And I'll show you a slide that becomes a part of explicit instruction about effective effort in a minute. But the main point we want to get across to kids explicitly is that ability is built incrementally through the exertion of effective effort and me teaching you how to use the feedback you're going to get. Now, of course, that means I have to give you very good, timely, explicit feedback on your academic work as you're doing it. So the growth mindset, originally given that name in Carol Dweck's book, Mindsets, from what is now 15 years ago, is another support for this belief about what ability is and how to grow it. And as one of my friends says, the mantra that goes with this is, think you can, work hard, and get smart. Smart is something you get, not something you're born with. Now, there is a history of how this idea came to be deeply rooted in the American psyche. And in the 19th century, it was not there. But between 1890 and 1920, 4 factors converged in order to make this the way it is in this country. The first thing is we had waves of immigration, over 1 million people a year coming on our shores. And we were, as it says in the slide, building one new high school a day and concentrating population in the largest cities. While that was happening, the Industrial Revolution created a factory-based economy in which the division of labor was a characteristic of the model. When you have division of labor, you have to sort people. So look at these two things now. Waves of immigration, people coming from all over the world, people who look different from the white dominant majority, the need to sort people in order to fill the various roles in the factory, those who clean up the floor when the shift is over, those who work the shift on the assembly line, the foreman of the shift, the manager of the department, the capitalists who put up the money for it. And now we have the era of Frederick Jackson Taylor and scientific measurement, which says human behavior can be measured. Now, as some of you may know, Taylor was the inventor of the efficiency expert. He was hired to go on the factory floor with a stopwatch and time how long it took to do various operations and make recommendations for improving and speeding up the operation of the assembly line. So now we have people arriving on our shores by the millions, the need to sort people, and the belief that human behavior is measurable. And then finally, we have social Darwinism, which is translating Darwin's notion of the survival of the fittest into advancement of the most intelligent. That is to say, those who rise in society deserve to rise because they're better people. And these four ideas came together and solidified under the concept of intelligence. Now, there was no measurement of students, nor was there differentiation of curriculum before this period in American history. This is, if you get the book I showed you at the beginning, the first two chapters are a detailed history of who the players were and how this notion evolved. But I want to highlight Alfred Binet here, who developed the very first intelligence test. And I want to ask some of our participants to join me here in looking at some of the things that Binet, who was a special educator, by the way, said about his own test. Lindsay, could I ask you to read this one out loud? Are you still with us, Lindsay? I heard her say thank you, John, when I was looking at the chat. How about you, Tim? Take this one over.
Sure. I think Lindsay's internet went out. The scores are a practical device. They do not buttress any theory of intellect. They do not define anything innate or permanent. We may not designate what they measure as intelligence or any other reified entity.
Isn't that something? The guy who invented the test, which others called an intelligence test, said, that's absolutely not what this is. Don, can you turn on your audio and read this one for us?
The scale is a rough empirical guide for identifying mildly retarded and learning disabled children who need special help. It is not a device for ranking normal children.
Thank you. Which, of course, is exactly what we do. We rank children and we separate them into differentiated groups, which by high school becomes called tracking. I remember, I don't know if it was Suyaha who was saying this before about how her son, in his 30s, still does not believe he can do math. I have twin sons who took a placement test at 6th grade that determined what track they would go into. And from middle school on, they believed they were not good in mathematics. I had to turn myself upside down in order to get them to change their mind about that. The smallest thing is taken as a signal, whether it's somebody who rolls their eyes at my performance or the error I just made, or whether it is a placement test that sorts kids into different groups. I'll read this one. This is Binet speaking. Intelligence is susceptible to development. With practice and training, we can augment a child's attention, memory, and judgment, making him literally more intelligent than he was before. And there are a number of studies which Tim cited to me before we started this call by people like Edward Deasy, Edward de Bono, Reuven Feuerstein, which actually show that intelligence scores can be increased by training of the things that intelligence tests measure. Remember that all intelligence tests are compilations of subtests, 10 in the Stanford-Binet, one of which includes vocabulary. I wonder whether or not you know and can give a reason why average IQs in the U.S. have risen 9 points per generation since 1932. That's called the Flynn effect. It's a New Zealand researcher. And it was only in the 90s that he discovered this and surfaced it. It's been kind of swept under the carpet as the reason we don't see it is because the Stanford-Binet and the Wechsler intelligence tests are renormed every 10 years so that the midpoint always comes out at 100, even though people are answering more and more questions correctly, and questions have to be discarded because too many people answer them correctly. What could possibly account for the fact that IQ tests have risen 9 points per generation if we weren't renorming the test? Anybody got any hypotheses about that? This is a good thing to ask at a cocktail party. Well, I'll tell you what the dominant view is of people who are in the
Hello,
psychometrics.
I think, hello,
Yeah.
I was trying to write, but maybe it's faster to speak. I think part of it is genetic because intelligence, yes, it is learned at school. We can develop it, we can increase it, but still there is part which is genetic. We cannot ignore that. This is what I think.
Right. Well, the other explanation is that more people go to school for more years than they did before, and what intelligence tests are measuring is subject to education. In 1910, only 10% of the students in this country, in the United States, even graduated from elementary school, which at that point went to grade 8. And a fraction of that percentage actually graduated from high school. And with each decade, the percentage of students who go even enter high school and then who graduate has gone up to reach the current national average in this country anyway of 78, 79, or 80%. So there is clear data that the amount of schooling people get is increasing. David Perkins is another person who shows that intelligence can be increased. I mentioned Edward de Bono. Perkins found that only 25% of the variability in grades, which would not include, thank God, Montessori schools, can be accounted for by scores on IQ tests. One of the arguments that's offered about the point you made about genetic intelligence is that there are people who are Mozarts and Einsteins who obviously have gifts beyond the norm, and one could only account for that by saying it was inborn. However, if you look at the lives of these people, you see that the people who are thought to be geniuses only got there by incredibly hard work, starting at a very young age. Mozart was a childhood prodigy at the age of 4. So I would not deny that Mozart had gifts beyond the norm, but he also hardly did anything else besides play piano and compose for the rest of his life, from 4 until his untimely death. His father made him the family meal ticket and traveled Europe with him, giving concerts to heads of state and local art aficionados. The same thing is true with sports phenomena. People who are who excel. In the town where I come from, Boston, Massachusetts, we had a great baseball player named Ted Williams. And if you look at Ted's life, you found that he hardly did anything but swing the bat at the ball from the age of 11 onward. This is Carol Dweck's research. Children who believe smart is something you can get do significantly better in school. And finally, this one comes from Edward Deasy, who regrettably, brilliant man, recently passed away. He showed that there is heritability by genetics from generation to generation of certain characteristics like height, verbal fluency. But heritability has nothing to do with malleability, the ability to change and grow and acquire more of whatever the entity is that you're measuring. And he gives the example of Japanese who immigrated to this country from either Hawaii or Japan, where the height of the children follows the pattern of inheritability, except that sons of Nisei who emigrated to this country and were raised with American nutrition average 4 to 6 inches higher than their parents. So I won't go any more into the statistical analysis of the research, but startling figures like the one that's shown on the screen here make a powerful case that ability can be grown and gives strong horsepower to any of us who want to make the case to our faculty members that we can get low performing, low confidence kids to believe they have able brains and can certainly master whatever academic material we throw their way. For a wind-up, I want to show you one amusing moment in a middle school where a teacher is displaying the quality of tenacity that is a really embedded part of what high expectation teaching is. This woman's name is Stephanie, and it's after lunch in her school, and she has had 4 students in her class who didn't do very well. And they certainly were not applying themselves, and so she ambushed them at the door when the bell rang and class ended and made appointments for them to come in and join her. And here we are in a very brief exchange where she shows an element of high expectation teaching that cannot be dodged. Do you see a totally black screen now?
Yep.
Oh, good. Because let me fill it in with an interesting moment.
So you have to put a 0 in there as a placeholder. What's the date? Put the decimal. No, in front of the 0. What's the date? Oh, I'm sorry, I erased it. 25th. This looks good. Now, you know what you're going to do, Dominique? There's no way in the world you want this paper representing you, do you? No. Even with the right answers. No. After you get the right answers, no. You're going to take this home. And you're going to have it in one of the nicest, neatest papers, and you're going to get 100, and I'm going to put it on the board. Yeah. But I'm not accepting this. You know that, don't you? There you go. Keep working. Talking like that because I'm in front of the camera. I am being nicer because I'm in front of the camera, but I still wouldn't take it anyway.
Isn't that a golden moment? All right, I will stop sharing. By the way, one of you was commenting on the significance of language before. There's no way in the world you want this paper representing you. Implicit meaning? You're better than that.
That's right.
You got it. All right, folks. Well, I hope some of these specifics have been interesting and useful to you, and that you'll be interested in diving into this wonderful knowledge base we have, all created by teachers, by the way. Doesn't come from university researchers. And I will send to you, Tim, that handout of 50 ways to leave your lover. 50 ways to get kids to believe in themselves.
There you go. Before you do that, Magda, I see you've got your hand up.
Yes, hello. I have a question, please. Thank you very much for a wonderful presentation. And I think kids now learn better in a different environment than their parents 10 years ago. That's why there is a difference of intelligence. The environment itself plays a very important part in increasing the intelligence. My question is how to create a balance between efficiency theory, effort theory that some teachers apply to the extreme. They push the kids. And we know that when we push the kids beyond the limits of the brain nerve system that can take stress. So they create stress. How can we create a balance between increasing the efficiency and at the same time balancing the psychological state of being calm, not stressed, especially that we have seen examples in our modern life. For example, from athletes who have been pushed by their parents when they were kids. I don't want to name the athletes, but they are very well known in golf, for example, in basketball. And then when they grow up, they come to a point when they deviate the behaviorally, they collapse. So this is an accumulation of not creating a balance between the efficiency theory, the effort, pushing the kids, etc., and balancing their psychological state. What is your formula? How can we achieve that? Thank you very much.
That's an excellent question, Magda. I think that the concept that's key is one called the warm demander. A warm demander is somebody who has achieved the balance you just described by emphasizing personal relationship building, support, compassion, with being pushy. Now, being pushy is the demanding part. And I think that the way to introduce the topic is to share research from a book like Gloria Ladson-Billings' book called Dream Keepers. The teachers that she highlights with case studies in that book are exemplars of warm demanding. The demanding part doesn't mean beating a kid over the head metaphorically in order to drive them to higher achievement. The demanding part of that means not giving up no matter what and using language that's tempered by support. John, I've seen you at your best, and this isn't at your best. I know you can do better than this. Let me see what kind of a plan we can make in order to accomplish that. So I would get Gloria's book called Dream Keepers and look at the case studies at the end of the book in the appendix, where she finds teachers who are not of the same ethnic group as the kids. The kids are all brown and black, and they're very successful because they manifest these qualities of warm demanding.
That is just great. John, thank you so much for being with us today. I think as I said at the beginning, that this was going to be something that the people who tend to attend our weekly webinars really will appreciate and understand. And all of you who jumped in and participated, like Don, Magda, and others, thank you so much. I encourage you, just keep doing it. This is intended to be a conversation. So without any further ado, since it's getting late, I will say good night, Sophie. John, thank you. Good night or good afternoon. I hope you'll come back because I think you've got lots to share. I'd love to have more conversation with you. Goodbye, everyone. Again, we'll send out the recording link as soon as I'm able to get it. Funky, good to see you, my dear. How are you?
Thank you. Good to see you all. Thanks so much.
You bet.
Yes.
All right, everyone. Next, we'll see you on Tuesday. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you all for your participation. Bye-bye, folks.
Bye-bye.